There's a kind of silence that follows a woman's withdrawal. It's not loud or obvious at first. It begins in the subtle shift of tone, in the delayed reply, in the smile that no longer reaches her eyes. And you, being a man of heart, think the right thing to do is step forward, to close the distance, to chase what seems to be slipping away. You tell yourself it's courage. You call it love. And in the beginning, it even feels noble. But what if I told you this instinct, though understandable, is quietly dismantling your strength? Most men aren't taught to sit with uncertainty. They're taught to act, to fix, to pursue, to fight for what they want. And when affection starts to fade, they believe more effort is the answer. More messages, more gestures, more availability. They become ever-present, hoping to reignite the spark through sheer will. But here's the Stoic truth. The more you chase what is retreating, the more you abandon yourself. Not immediately, but little by little. You lose the stillness that once defined you. You lose the dignity of restraint. You become a man reacting to her, instead of standing firm in who you are. And that is when attraction dies. Not because you weren't good enough, but because you stopped being the grounded version of yourself she was drawn to in the first place. It's a quiet erosion. You don't notice it at first, but every time you ignore your instincts to please her, every time you silence your discomfort just to keep the peace, you chip away at the very foundation that made you a man of value. Stoicism teaches us not to chase anything that costs us our peace, not status, not attention, not even love. Because love, when it is real, does not ask you to lose yourself to keep it alive. When you find yourself over-giving, over-explaining, overreaching, it's time to pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this from clarity or from fear? Am I leading, or have I started following emotions that are no longer mutual? Because chasing may feel like strength, but if it's driven by fear of loss, it's weakness in disguise. A man anchored in purpose doesn't chase. He invites. He stands still, not out of pride, but out of principle. And if she truly values what he brings, she returns, not because he begged, but because his presence is irreplaceable. You don't earn love through desperation. You express it through calm strength, through unwavering presence, and through the quiet knowing that you were whole long before she arrived. And that's where the real shift begins. Not in how much you give to her, but in how fully you return to yourself. Now let's explore 5 clear signs that you've crossed the line from connection into quiet pursuit, and how to step back with wisdom before it costs you more than you realize. The 5 Stoic signs you're chasing too much. Signs number 1, you initiate everything, and she lets you with. At first, it seems harmless. You text first, you call to check in, you plan every meeting, you offer your time, your energy, your presence, and she accepts it. But over time it becomes clear, if you stopped reaching out, the silence would stretch on forever. That's not connection, it's imbalance. Stoicism teaches us that mutual effort is a reflection of mutual value. When a man gives constantly without receiving, he isn't showing strength. He's signaling that her presence is worth more than his own, and that, over time, quietly undermines respect. A relationship where only one person carries the rhythm is not a bond, it's a performance. A woman who values your presence will seek it, not just accept it. Signs number 2. You feel anxious when she pulls back. If her silence makes your heart race, if her delayed reply makes you question yourself, if your peace crumbles when she grows distant, that's a sign you've placed your emotional stability in her hands. And that's not love. That's dependency. A Stoic man feels everything, but he is not ruled by what he feels. He may notice the change in energy, but instead of scrambling to fix it, he leans into stillness. He observes, reflects, and returns to center. He knows that his worth is not determined by another's attention, and he refuses to betray his inner calm just to chase comfort. When her withdrawal rattles you, it's not just about her behavior. It's a call to examine what you've anchored yourself to and whether that foundation is firm or fragile. Signs number 3. You adjust yourself just to keep her comfortable. There's a slow self-erasure that can happen when you're chasing too hard. You stop speaking your mind to avoid conflict. You say yes when you want to say no. You tolerate what feels wrong just to keep her close. You tell yourself it's compromise, but really, it's quiet abandonment of self. A Stoic man knows that compromise has limits. He is kind, but he is not pliable. He bends where there is mutual respect, not where it demands the loss of his integrity. When you find yourself constantly adapting to avoid discomfort, ask, am I being understanding, or am I just afraid she'll leave if I show who I really am? Chasing becomes clearest when we stop living as ourselves and start performing as who we think she wants. Signs number 4. You seek constant reassurance. You ask how she feels. You check if she's still interested. You interpret every word and gesture through a lens of doubt. You're not looking for connection. You're looking for proof that you haven't already lost her. And that need for constant validation speaks volumes, not about her, but about how little trust you've placed in yourself. Stoicism teaches that self-trust is sacred. You do not beg for certainty from others, you cultivate it within. When you catch yourself asking questions just to feel secure, pause. Real security is not given through her words, it's rebuilt in the silence you're willing to face without crumbling. Signs number 5. You've lost your own direction. Perhaps the clearest sign you're chasing is this: your world now orbits her. Your goals have dimmed, your sense of purpose has shifted. You wait for her message to feel good. You adjust your day around her availability. You don't lead, you react. You don't build, you wait. A Stoic man does not collapse his life into the shape of another. He walks with direction. He has a path, with or without companionship. And that path, clear, focused, undisturbed, is what makes him so magnetic. When a woman sees that your world moves with or without her, she feels the difference between a man who needs her and a man who chooses her. And that difference changes everything. When you begin to notice these signs in yourself, it is not a cause for shame. It is a moment of awakening, a reminder to come back to the man you were before the chase began. A man who gave from fullness, not fear. Who led with presence, not performance. You don't lose a woman by not chasing. You lose her when you stop being the man who led from stillness, clarity, and quiet strength. Let's go deeper, because knowing the signs is only the beginning. The next step is how to reclaim your center, step back without resentment, and rebuild the kind of presence no woman forgets. Let's talk about that now. The Stoic shift, from pursuer to pillar. There comes a moment in every man's life, often after disappointment, silence, or slow emotional erosion, when he realizes that chasing has not brought him closer, but further away. And it's in that still, sobering moment that something powerful can be born. A shift. A redirection not of strategy, but of spirit, from the grasping energy of the pursuer to the grounded calm of the pillar. The Stoic man does not chase, he builds. He creates a life of depth, of movement, of value that draws people toward him, not by effort, but by gravity. He doesn't over-explain, he doesn't convince, and he never makes someone feel obligated to stay. Because his presence isn't a performance, it's a sanctuary. Quiet, sure, and centered. To shift from pursuer to pillar is not about becoming cold or distant. It's not about pretending not to care. It's about reordering your priorities. It's realizing that emotional dignity matters more than temporary closeness. It's choosing to lead with your life, not with longing. Where the pursuer waits on responses, the pillar continues forward. He wakes with purpose. He speaks only when words are needed. And when they are, he speaks with clarity, not desperation. He knows that a man who radiates peace and direction becomes irresistible, not because he demands love, but because he needs nothing, and yet gives everything of substance. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It begins in the quiet decisions, choosing to pause before you text again, choosing to spend time on your passions, not on her patterns, choosing to cultivate friendships, mission, health, discipline, not to distract from her absence, but to re-anchor your presence. The pillar stands firm not to prove a point, but because he knows that his strength is not in what he can gain, but in what he refuses to lose, his self-respect. And here's the paradox most men miss. The less you chase, the more powerful your presence becomes. The more you lead from your core, the more she feels the pull of something real, something unmoved by her moods, or your doubts, or anyone else's opinions. You stop being the guy who's trying too hard and become the man she begins to wonder about, to respect, to admire, and maybe to return to. But even if she doesn't, it doesn't matter. Because once you've made the Stoic shift, you no longer measure your worth by who stays. You measure it by how steady you stood when the winds tried to shake you. You are no longer trying to win her. You are walking as the man she never thought she could lose. And that changes everything. There's a quiet truth that most men discover too late. When you chase, you lose more than her attention. You lose your center. You step away from the calm stillness of who you are, hoping to earn something that was never yours to force. But when you stop chasing, not in anger, not in pride, but in peace, everything begins to shift. Let her choose you. Not because you begged, not because you overextended, not because you were always available. Let her choose you because you stood in your truth, lived with intention, and refused to abandon your dignity for temporary affection. If she comes back, let it be because your presence spoke louder than your pursuit. If she doesn't, let that be your freedom. Because the real prize was never her attention, it was the man you became when you stopped needing it. A man rooted, patient, emotionally strong. A man who no longer seeks to control the outcome, but who trusts the strength of his silence and the power of his peace. This world will keep telling you to chase, to prove, to persuade, to persist, even when your soul grows tired. But here, in this space, we practice something deeper. Something timeless, the philosophy of restraint, of clarity, of walking away not with bitterness, but with self-respect intact. So here's what I invite you to do, right now, wherever you are. Pause, reflect, ask yourself honestly, have you been chasing someone who isn't choosing you back? And if so, are you willing to choose yourself, not out of spite, but out of love? That's where real healing begins. That's where real masculinity lives. And if this message resonated with you, I invite you to walk with us on this path. Subscribe to Ultimate Stoicism for more lessons rooted in timeless wisdom. Leave a comment below, share your story, your turning point, or the moment you stopped chasing and started leading. Your voice might be exactly what another man needs to hear. Because in a noisy world full of desperation, your calm presence might just be the rarest and most powerful thing she ever encounters. Choose peace, stand tall, and never forget, being chosen means nothing if you forget to choose yourself.